What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at Manchester City and how they beat Brentford in the Premier League by a scoreline of 1-0. But before we get into the tactics behind the match, check out both my books. They're online on Amazon and there's links in the description below. Also, be sure to check out Keyframe. It's how I made this video. Now, Manchester City reverted back to their ways against attacking against a low block with their starting rest defense structure of a 2-3 rest defense, which very closely resembles a W rest defense structure with Fernandinho as the single pivot. Then higher between the lines, they started with a base of 3 players in attacking midfield positions centered around the central and 2 half spaces. Then the width was held by either Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, or Jack Grealish, rotating in and out of this area, and then on the right hand side primarily occupied by Gabriel Jesus. This was the setup they used to try and break down the 5-3-2 of Brentford. Now, Brentford's high level of compactness made the spaces very small for Manchester City to try and exploit, and often they tried to use their first or second line of build-up with players jumping in possession of the ball. So a lot of times it would be Laporte jumping with the ball to try and attract a midfielder to jump out to then create space between the lines and find the players. This could also be done by fullbacks like João Cancelo playing through the half space, trying to pull out a midfielder and potentially a jumping central defender to then find more space in behind. But it was a very patient build-up for Manchester City, which was more about controlling the game to seeing out their 1-0 victory. As we see here, a mid-block now from Brentford in their 5-3-2, as we see just a staggering of their 3 central defenders and their wing-back off our screen on the left-hand side here. But from Manchester City, we start to see some of the interactions of the defenders and some of their different dynamics between these players. So João Cancelo played more of an advanced role, Ake playing a bit deeper, more inclined to create a back 3, with Cancelo going forward in the half space or coming inverted alongside Fernandinho, while having the freedom to rotate in this wide structure with Kevin De Bruyne and Gabriel Jesus in the wide area in the half space. The big piece here is showing Laporte driving forward and now them trying to pull out a Brentford midfielder to then create space for a player in the wide corridor who ends up being Bernardo Silva in this instance, completely free in the wide area, and then with the midfield of Manchester City shifting over to then accommodate Bernardo Silva in the wide area. They have players pinning central defenders and pinning and affecting midfielders of Brentford. So when one midfielder gets pulled out, space is created, and then with a player like Phil Foden in the wide area playing higher up the field, pinning the wing back, it creates a free player higher up the field for Manchester City and allows Manchester City to progress the ball going around the Brentford mid-block before they enter into more dangerous areas. And right away we can see the asymmetric defense from Manchester City with Ake joining to create a back 3, João Cancelo moving a bit higher to create a stronger wide structure on the right hand side, which often saw De Bruyne go into the wide area, Cancelo go between the lines, and Gabriel Jesus hold the width. But not only this, we have a very flexible midfield structure with Fernandinho, De Bruyne, Grealish, and Bernardo Silva all playing through the midfield in the central corridors with 3 players between the lines, putting them in good positions to be able to interchange with the fullbacks coming from deeper areas, as we see here, with João Cancelo in possession of the ball, having a strong relationship with the 2 players just in front of him. Brentford's 5-3-2 gave them the ability to try and shift their midfield over to then pressure one of the fullbacks while giving them a back 5 to give them added security, but also forces them to jump to these players playing deeper in City's attacking midfield positions, which could have created space in behind against Brentford. Now, a really good picture from both teams. We see the compactness of Brentford offering little to no space between the lines at all and very little space in behind in Brentford's low block, forcing Manchester City to have a very patient build-up. Now we see Kevin De Bruyne go into the wider area now. Nathan Ake creating a back three for Manchester City, and Fernandinho as a single pivot. So now De Bruyne has interchanged his position with João Cancelo, with Gabriel Jesus still holding the width. So this provides a strong wide structure with players advancing through the half space, creating height and width, and putting De Bruyne on the ball in a dangerous area, which is crucial for Manchester City, and it highlights all De Bruyne's strengths with being able to play the ball in these very, very dangerous areas in behind the back line of Brentford, with then players like Jack Grealish arriving on the blind side, arriving late to then take advantage of this high line in the low block for Brentford if there was enough space to then try and exploit with a curved pass in behind to the single forward, advancing by Jack Grealish. Now, a little piece on Brentford's build-up. They went with a build-up structure of a three-man back line overloading the right-hand side, which is a typical trend in a back three because of the absence of left-footed central defenders, so it makes more sense to overload the right-hand side. We had a very fluid midfield, but played much deeper to create control when they did have the ball and to prepare for second balls when they did go long. They had single width from their wingbacks, and then two forwards as target players with their fluid midfield underneath to try and collect second balls. Now for Manchester City, they went with a 4-2-3-1, as we see Jack Grealish and Kevin De Bruyne in the two forward positions, and we have our midfield three of Phil Foden, Gabriel Jesus, and now Fernandinho jumping on, Bernardo Silva just off our screen to the left-hand side. So what the wide midfielders of Manchester City look to do is they look to press from out to in and limit the availability from the central defenders to the wingbacks by using their cover shadow and forcing play into central corridors for a more efficient and dangerous transition. In the second half, we saw a little bit longer spells of possession for Brentford, trying to then get a hold of the game, but they also played with an even deeper midfield line when they were in possession, so it was more about circulating and establishing control in possession before they went long to try and win a second ball and go very direct. So by doing this, they often pulled out the press of Manchester City and Manchester City's 4-2-3-1, as we see quite clearly in this picture. So once Manchester City was sucked into press, this would be then the time for Brentford to go long and try and win the second ball to exploit the space left in Manchester City's high block. So a high pressing team against a very direct team at times create a lot of 1v1 duels against Manchester City's backline, which required good covering, good 1v1 duels and actions among these players, which Manchester City more than often won. And that's where we're going to cap off the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.